Farnell Planning Commission to order. Let the record reflect that we have 4 important commissioners here, and that constitutes a quorum. And I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Littledale.
Thank you, sir. Declare we do have a full house tonight. We have a quorum. Second item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the previous month. Any motions?
Motion to approve. Second.
David makes a motion, Chris seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Tonight, we do have 6 items on the agenda. 4 are in the county, 2 are in the city. Before we get to them, Mr. Ethan Calhoun from the Northwest Georgia Regional Commission will review the procedures for tonight's meeting for those who would like to speak for and against.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting tonight will run at the direction of the chairman, and if you got a chance to grab an agenda, we have those sitting out front. Hopefully there'll be plenty for everyone to have a copy. And you can see the order of the agenda also on the screens. And first, the chairman will open the hearing for the first item on the agenda. And once the hearing is open, I will come forward to the podium and give a brief summary of the request for rezoning and a recommendation from the perspective of the staff. Once my comments have been heard, the chairman will ask for the petitioner, that is the individual who's here tonight, to rezone the property, or their power of attorney to come forward and answer any questions or make any statements in relation to their request. Once the petitioner's comments have been heard, the chairman will ask if there's anyone else in the crowd who would like to speak in favor of the rezoning other than the petitioner. Once all comments in favor of the item have been heard, chairman will ask if anyone would like to speak in opposition to the item on the agenda. Now, it's very important that per state law, if you do intend to speak in opposition to any of the items on the agenda, that out front we have several forms, and they're labeled city and county, which if you're not sure whether or not your item is in the city of Dalton or unincorporated Whitfield County, we have that parentheses on each one of these items on the agenda, so you can check that. Fill out that agenda, or fill out that opposition form, and just note which item on the agenda that it is you're speaking in opposition of, and also please clearly print your name as well as sign it, because to make sure we get your information correct, your name correct in the minutes for the record, for your comments to be passed along to the governing authority, we'll need to be able to see your name clearly in print. So please take time to do that. We do have pens, and again, plenty of forms out front for that. Once you fill out that form, what you'll do is present that to me, then approach the podium and address the Planning Commission with any of your concerns and the reason you're opposing the rezoning. Once your comments have been heard, or once all opposition's comments have been heard, the chairman will give an opportunity to the petitioner to rebuttal or to address any of the issues raised in the opposition's remarks. If no new information is presented in the petitioner's rebuttal, the chairman will then close that public hearing and move to the next item on the agenda. And that same procedure will follow suit on every item on tonight's agenda. And once the public hearing has been closed on that particular agenda item, there will be no further public comment. Once the public hearings have been held, the chairman will move into the regular meeting of the Planning Commission, at which point the Planning Commission will deliberate and make a recommendation, which will be sent forth to the Board of Commissioners and the City of Dalton, which will be where final decisions are made. And those decisions will likely come during the month of June, during the regular meetings of the Board of Commissioners and the Mayor and Council. So tonight's purpose is to hear comments for and against the items on the agenda. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ethan. First request is to hear from Rigoberto Barragan. Are you present? To rezone from R2 to GA, 213 East Broadacre Road, Northeast in Dalton. This is in the county. Ethan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request before us here is a rezoning from the single-family, low-density residential zone district to the general agriculture zone district. Essentially, the reason for this request is that the petitioner would like to be able to rezone their property in order to add an additional single-family dwelling to the subject property. As we can see, the subject property is well in excess of the 5-acre minimum required for the general agriculture zone district. And this could certainly be accomplished based on the needs of the petitioner and the general agriculture zone district. Looking at the zoning map, we see this is an area that is a convergence of several different zone districts, and we see primarily at the location of the subject property, the low-density R2 residential zone district around the subject property to the north, east, and west, and predominantly the general agriculture zone district to the south. So this would not create any sort of an island or anomaly of zoning in this area where both zones, R2 and GA, are common. Looking at the existing development, we can see a single-family dwelling on the subject property, mostly wooded and mostly undeveloped. Another close-up of the subject property, and also the future development map, which shows the property to be within the emerging suburban character area. And while this character area would lend itself more so to the residential zone districts, the general agriculture zone district also has a residential character, so this would not prohibit residential zoning and would allow for residential use as well as potential for agricultural uses on the property that wouldn't be permitted in R2. And the staff recommendation is that this rezoning can be approved without having a negative impact on this area. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Barragan, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Rigoberto Barragan, 213 East Broadacre Road.
You have anything you'd like to add?
Now, just planning to build our dream house. The existing house was built in 1942, so it's a pretty old dwelling. I'd like to build a new one for our family.
Are you building it on the west side of the lot?
It's, it's on the west side, but we're clearing the area.
Will you keep the old house as well?
Yes.
Other questions? That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor? Anybody who'd like to speak in opposition? Very well, that closes review of that request. Moving on to the next request is from Marco Sanchez. Are you in the audience? Seeking to rezone from R5 to C1, total of .25 acres at 100 Downing Street in Dalton. This is in the county. Ethan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have here this request, again, to be rezoned from rural residential R5 to neighborhood commercial C1. And we see a very small property, roughly 1/4 of an acre in size, and it currently contains a small commercial office-type building. And the petitioner's request is in order to bring the subject property into a conforming status. And as we look at the zoning map, we'll see this area is adjacent, or the subject property is adjacent to multiple commercially zoned properties, several of which are developed for commercial use. And we can see the subject property essentially at the intersection of multiple streets here, which is another aspect of typical commercial development. We can see also the subject property adjacent to the neighborhood commercial zone district, so this would not create any sort of spot zoning or, again, any sort of anomaly on the zoning map that would be starkly contrast to what already exists there. And we can see the proximity to East Wallen Avenue, which, of course, as everyone knows, is a highly commercialized corridor. And next, we can see the development of the area. So again, you can see a lot of commercial throughout this area. So this would neither create a zoning issue, nor would it create a character that would be out of character with what already exists there.
Again, closer look at the subject property with the existing building, so we can see there is some additional area where parking could be accomplished and some additional area to the site. Also, we can see that this is within the Regional Activities Center of the comprehensive plan, which is aimed more toward commercial as well as higher density residential development. So the proposed rezoning for neighborhood commercial would be in really perfect alignment with the intent of the comprehensive plan based on the development and zoning in this area. Staff recommendation is approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sanchez? State your name and address, please.
Marco Sanchez, 100 Downing Street.
You have anything you'd like to add?
No, it's just gonna be used as an office area.
Just as an office?
Yeah.
Not going to do any further development?
It'll probably be used as a rental space as well in the future.
I didn't catch all that. Is there a business there already?
No, there's no business.
There is a building.
Just a building?
Yeah.
And what business do you plan to put there?
In the future, it'll be a barber shop.
Okay. No further questions? Thank you, sir. Anybody else would like to speak in favor? Anybody like to speak in opposition? Excellent. Close the discussion on that. Next one is Dixie Bricks is seeking to rezone from C2 to M2, 265 Southwest Carbondale Road in Dalton. This one is in the county. Ethan? I assume Dixie Bricks representative is here? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this request is for a property a little under 50 acres in size that's currently located off of Carbondale Road, being requested to be rezoned from C2, general commercial, to heavy manufacturing, M2. And when we look at the zoning map at this location, we see a convergence of a number of different zones in this area, a fair amount of diversity in land use. First and foremost, the subject property, which is sort of a flag-shaped lot, rather large in comparison to a number of the adjacent properties. And as we see, it's currently within the general commercial zone district and adjacent to several other general commercial zone districts on both sides of the interstate. We also see around this area a number of properties zoned in that purple color, which is the heavy manufacturing or M2 zone district. But this area is also home to a number of single-family residential properties, rural residential properties, and even some general agriculture. So when we look at the current zoning, we can see that by changing the zoning map from where it is now, would go from commercial to heavy manufacturing, and at this particular location would create an island of manufacturing. But when we look at the greater area, we see manufacturing within the proximity, and again, we see the large and consistent commercial zone district. Next, looking at existing development, we can see the subject property being undeveloped. We can see in proximity to the subject property some larger rooftops for commercial and manufacturing uses, and you can see not very far from the subject property some very large heavy manufacturing footprints. Around the subject property, we do see some residential development, particularly two adjacent tracts on the same side of Carbondale Road to the north and the south along the flagpole of the subject property, where those residential properties would abut essentially the access to the subject property. You can see most of the buildable area of the subject property would be toward the east or the rear of the lot. And we can see that within the future development map of the comprehensive plan, this is notated as the interchange, right on the periphery of the interchange character area. And this character area was intended to represent areas that are in proximity to the interstate interchange. And the recommended types of development for this character area range from commercial, high-density residential, manufacturing being some of the most significant types of development that would be recommended for this character area. One of those reasons being the immediate proximity to the logistics of it being so close to the interstate exit, so that any of those high-impact land uses would be near to the interstate to limit some of that traffic on county roads. With all that in consideration, based on the amount of buffer required for manufacturing as far as impact to adjacent residential or agricultural property, we believe that the buffer would serve as a mitigating factor for that, as well as the fact that the current status of the subject property as general commercial allows for a large amount of commercial development potential. In fact, most any commercial use would be permitted within the general commercial zone district. So intensive commercial type development is already permitted on the subject property. Heavy manufacturing would simply change the type of land use from commercial to manufacturing. And we believe that the buffers and setbacks of this property and its positioning would buffer any negative impact that would be experienced by the adjacent and surrounding properties. With all that in consideration, staff recommendation is for approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners? Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Christian Bard. I'm here on behalf of Dixie Bricks. Our firm represents Dixie Bricks and in this particular application. Essentially, the purpose of this is Dixie Bricks is planning on building a spec building for proposed tenants. And so the idea would be to open it up to a broader range of tenants that could use this property, given its close proximity to I-75, Carbondale, the Carbondale exchange there, or interchange there. And so the idea behind it would be to make it more appealing to prospective tenants that could come into this property. Dixie Bricks would build the building to those particular specifications of whatever the tenant would be, and assist with, driving the economic development for the county in this particular area, as well as bringing the jobs to whatever the particular tenant would be for that particular job site. The idea would be that as noted on the map up there, kind of the little almost panhandle or handle of the flagpole, as Ethan stated, would be an entrance into the area, and then the larger square shape would be more of where the proposed building site would be for any particular building. We do have a blow-up of the site plan, if that would be helpful for you to see, if you want to bring it up, Parker. So that's kind of the blow-up of what the site plan would look like for a prospective building. If you'll let the commissioner see it as well.
So what,
And so-
are you gonna build like a big concrete, like a distribution type facility?
Yeah, so it would be, and we don't know the exact specifications because we don't know what the tenant that would rent this area would be, but that's kind of an idea of what the building would look like.
The building or multiple buildings possibly?
So the idea would be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is be one building in that particular area.
Just a single building. It would also be really looking for build-to-suit opportunities, so it's not something that would sit vacant. It would be designed for an actual tenant in mind. And the rezoning to M2 would allow for us to appeal to a wider array of employers to come to the area who would offer, more jobs, probably 3x the jobs that a distribution facility would offer, and higher paying salaries, as much more the build out would be devoted to, engineering and scientists type employment. And then to piggyback off what's already been said, there's no M2 properties that are currently adjacent to this parcel, but they're, two of the largest, manufacturing operations in our region are within a half mile of this property and make up the two northern quadrants of the I-75 Carbondale interchange. And again, we think that since the sewer has been brought to the interstate from South Dug Gap Road recently with the SPLOST funds, that it would not overburden any of the utilities there. It makes sense. And we also see that it being so set far back from the road, that you still kind of maintain that opportunity for future retail along Carbondale, except for that 200-foot access. And most of the building would be about 1,000 feet off the road near the interstate.
What would be the total square footage of the building?
We're looking at 600,000, somewhere 600,000 to 700,000, and are generating interest from manufacturing users at the moment that are, and they're not your typical kind of dye or chemical type plants. They're more of your kind of automotive EV type of.
Looks more distribution than, more like cut and sew or distribution or something like that.
It does appear that way right now, and we are fielding interest from those type of parties, which is already permitted on the property. But until we get the manufacturing, we've ran with this type of drawing just because we don't want to market anything that's not actually achievable at the property yet. But in a build-to-suit operation, we would design it to their exact specifications.
Now, obviously, you'd have a lot of large trucks pulling in and out of there, the access to Carbondale Road. You would be putting some large turn lanes in there, egress.
So we don't foresee there being a whole lot of additional stress on the infrastructure leading to the area. You've already have some manufacturing parcels along that would use that Carbondale Road already. And with it being close proximity to I-75, you've already got the infrastructure there to kind of alleviate some of that on the county roads, except for just that Carbondale Road area. The other thing is, with it being a C2, you probably would have the same level of traffic, if not, if you were to, for example, turn that into like a shopping center or something like that, you may see even additional traffic because you wouldn't just have the trucks, but you may have the vehicles from the individuals that would be going to the shopping center. So, we don't foresee there being any additional burden on the infrastructure at that juncture.
At this point, could it be one tenant or 6 tenants?
We're designing it for a single user, but it could be subdivided
That's what I'm saying. You
for
could
multiple.
It would just depend on what the particular tenants would need.
Our current plan is to not move forward in construction until, of the actual building. We may get it pad ready where it's cleared and more appealing to potential users, but we're not planning to move forward with the building until we have a user with a sign, wanting to buy or occupy the space.
Do you foresee any kind of, developing any kind of high water or sewage needs within the building? Or is it just going to be just serviceable, as in true manufacturing?
Yeah, we believe it would just be surface water. We don't think it's going to have some, heavy requirement that would overburden the infrastructure. And there's a 12-inch main along Carbondale Road, which we think is, would be plenty.
Natalia, anything else? Gentlemen? Commissioners back there? Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor? Anybody would like to speak in opposition? If that's fine. Do you have paperwork for him? Did you fill out the paperwork?
I have it filled out. Do I need to turn it in now at this time?
Well, you can get it to him, yeah. Yeah, if you could just pass it over to Ethan. And your name and address?
Elizabeth Pulliam, 280 Carbondale Road Southwest. And I live relatively adjacent to this property, or across the street from this property. And was not even aware, happened to see the sign went through, I've got a petition so far with 235 signatures on this short of a notice opposing this for that particular area. And obviously, no offense to anyone for the petitioner side of it, but you haven't been on Carbondale Road if you think there's not going to be any impact as far as traffic on existing what this is. Because on South Dugout Road, the majority of the industry on that road uses Connector 3. Very few actually go up, including the area that's there right now, Cinch, and it's a very small business in comparison with it being commercial. Very quiet, we had no problems with them. However, at that location, just within a 3-month period, there were 10 jackknife trucks trying to get out of what that little access area there is. We have the church on the other side with the graveyard that this is going to go up and behind and so forth as well. And no one really wants heavy industrial or heavy manufacturing at that location. And it may be the futuristic plans to turn the south end into the industrial, part of the county, but we really don't want anything else down there. We don't get anything good. We get all the bad shoved on us down there. And it's just like, please, leave us alone. We love our picturesque area. It's quiet, tranquil, even with this commercial location that was there. Aside from them wanting to turn it into a firing range every so often, they were quiet. Or, like I said, the jackknife truck that took a while for them to even try to maneuver out because of the residential. As far as trying to widen the road, you've got 5 graves on one side. It's the reason why the interchange is now roundabouts, because they wanted to put, as we found out, for engineered flooring, basically an on-ramp, off-ramp to the interstate down there. And they couldn't even widen the road as we suggested they possibly do, which I would give up frontage to save people's homes. But it's just like, we don't need the industrial area right there, and it is gonna be a major impact. We don't want the pollution there. We've got a lot of people that have moved out into the county, and yes, they're talking about bringing in the jobs and so forth. Where are the people gonna live if you take all the county property away from them? The Dalton Whitfield Joint Development Corporation says, yeah, there's 1.4 million workforce within a 60-mile radius. Are you wanting to run everybody out of there to that 60-mile radius? We've lived there our entire lives. It's old families that are in there. My family's been in that area since the 20s. That specific house since the late 30s, as most of the people here, and that signed these petitions. I knew all these names from my grandmother's generation, and it's the same. They're talking about all the populations and so forth. With the census information, Dalton and Whitfield County is actually losing population. And you're just basically wanting to concrete the entire area. And we don't want it. Just please leave us alone. There's enough vacant places already zoned for heavy manufacturing up the South Bypass that could be utilized. There's vacant buildings that have gone out of business for whatever reason. Why not repurpose those areas? Especially if you're just gonna build another building, kind of like somebody may want, or something like that. You don't have the tenants specified yet. We knew when the sewer line came in, it wasn't anything to benefit us. We assumed, of course, it was to benefit Bob Shaw and engineered flooring, as is typical with our area down there. But we were actually told it was gonna be for a subdivision. I would take a subdivision over heavy manufacturing. And Dalton's close enough for me to do any shopping that I may need to do if there's gonna be retail down there. And we just don't need the pollution or anything in that area. We've got underground springs, people have well water. We already have the issue with the chicken houses down there. People who have their own chickens have gotten their animals sick because of the wind, the way the wind travels from the chicken houses that were put in. So all we can just basically say is, leave us alone. We're not bothering you, don't bother us. I don't know how else to put it, but
That's well put.
Just leave us alone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, she covered a lot there. Does anybody else like to speak in opposition?
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Excuse me?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Calhoun. What is the difference, since we don't know what the purpose is of the M2 zoning? I didn't hear that except to build a big building. What is the difference between the C2 and M2 that the same thing can't be accomplished?
Commercial, while it can allow larger buildings of the same sort of nature, manufacturing would allow manufacturing uses to occur. Commercial is more geared towards distribution and retail type services, goods and retail distribution. Industrial is geared more toward the actual manufacturing of products. So it doesn't necessarily change the type of building, traffic generation, or site development as much as it allows what can be done inside the building that is actually built on the property.
So the petitioner thinks that he can't do whatever he wants to do under C2, needs to go to M2.
Well, I think, Barry, that it allows them to have a bigger potential audience for a building that they're gonna build to either sell or lease.
Okay,
I think it just opens up a whole nother venue of potential end users for them
like going to M2.
beyond just,
If they could already go ahead and build a building that size, how it's on now.
I don't think there's a size limitation on the commercial versus the manufacturing. I just think it's the utilization by the end user.
Buffers, things like that.
So basically, it's gonna open up more potential purchasers or tenants.
So I heard a 700,000 square foot building, is that what I understand?
Yes,
6 to 7.
6 to 700.
700,000, so under C2, they could go ahead and build a 600,000?
They could. I just think from their point of view, they're looking for a wider scope of potential
Yeah.
purchasers or tenants. So they could
Okay.
build the building. It's just the people that would be interested in it, if it was from a manufacturing nature,
Yeah,
they would not, be a prospective,
okay,
purchaser.
May I ask a question?
you got to go,
May I ask, oh, I'm sorry.
it's being
I've never done
recorded.
this before.
It's being recorded, so you got to go
I've
to
never
the,
done this.
got to go to the mic.
Mr. Robbins, to answer your question, I did have a letter that I came up that had the definition of heavy manufacturing, and it does state for carpet manufacturing, warehouse and distribution, or any other type of heavy industrial uses.
Yeah.
So it would not be like for a retail site or anything like that they're saying. They're actually wanting, and it states in there with moderate amounts of pollution, such as, which I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Thank you. I was wondering if anyone actually had that. The definition of it would state, it may generate external traffic and may include moderate amounts of environmental pollution in the form of traffic, noise, odors, smoke, fumes, glare, or heat. And as I said, people have well water down there. And it's not only, I was not able to get down to West Nancy Springs, which is gonna be on the south side of that building site. And out of the over 200 people that I have spoken with, only 8 people saw the sign, but could not read what the sign says, where the sign was posted, leaning up against the business's fence. We actually called the zoning office and asked them to please put it next to the road where people could see, because it is on a dangerous curve where it was placed before. You would have to stop your car on the side of the road, get out, walk up to the fence, which is 35 feet away from where you would be sitting in the passenger, because I measured it from the south, or the eastbound side and the westbound side of Carbondale to see that sign. And out of the people that did know about it, or like there were maybe 3 others that knew about it after the fact, because somebody else had told them. One person I went back by their house accidentally, because I've started off at the polling location, and they said they drove by, they still didn't see the sign because it had been moved to the truck side. It disappeared for 2 days, then came up on the truck entrance side against the building behind the tall grass that has not been mowed yet. And it looks like it could be a sign for,
Yeah, we're gonna have to get that
so,
fixed.
okay.
Do you have a petition with you? Would
Yes,
you-
I have the 235
Would you like to give it to us?
signed, yes. And if you want more, I can go down the rest of the roads. I have medical issues and
Okay.
that's preventing me from doing that. So I can
Okay,
get down
very
West
good.
Texas Springs and
Thank
down
you.
Carbondale.
For the record. I think she's covered most of it. If you've got something specific you want to add, if you're not on this list, sir? We'll just take this one last person.
I'm Charles Akery, and I'm going to speak for my family's behalf. Although probably don't all see, eye to eye on a lot of things. I hope we all see eye to eye on this. The property that's just east of that track and the properties that are south of that track, there's approximately 86.2 acres that we have. There's multiple family members. And one thing that concerns us, I'm all for growth. But what kind of growth? And so, sounds a little sketchy to me about zoning this M2 and not having a client. We don't know what's gonna go in, so, I think that depending on that, it could majorly affect the property around it. The property that we have, will service about 174 site-built homes on 50 acres, and then, that's not counting the remaining acreage. I have been working diligently, trying to put this together, waiting on the sewer to come in, and it's here, and have a lot of interest in finishing this development. Matter of fact, my grandfather made this a development in 1965. So, I think that it will majorly affect that. And I'm not saying that I'm totally against it, but I would like to know what it is. Because
The
that's.
objection is you don't know what's coming.
Yeah, don't know what's coming, so I would rather not rezone something with having no knowledge
Okay.
of what's going in, because it will, depending on what it is, it could majorly affect
I
everything.
understand. Okay,
So,
very good.
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, rebuttal.
I think a lot of the concerns have already been addressed, and the fact that the building, some of the concerns were the surrounding neighbors don't want a large building in this area. They want to maintain kind of the residential aspect of it, but because it is already zoned as a C2, they could put this building there. The building itself isn't going to change whether it's C2 versus manufacturing. It's just who can be there. And so the point of it is, as stated before, is just trying to offer a larger array of prospective tenants for this particular property to make it more appealing for the potential tenants. The other concerns, as stated before, as far as the traffic, again, you already have manufacturing along this area that's already, that you already have the traffic there. Not to mention, as I stated before, the fact that if this is going to, if it stayed a C2, you would have the road traffic from the people that are driving there, the employees, the workers, the prospective shoppers for retail. It would increase, probably be more traffic in that particular situation than what they're proposing. As far as the concerns of, the surrounding neighbors not wanting to see it, there is the buffer requirements. So, they would obviously comply with any buffer requirements. The building site would be in that bottom part where on one side you've got I-75. So, there's nobody on, that particular side. And then you would have the buffers that would kind of shield or buffer any kind of visual perspective for the particular property. And then as far as, the concern about not knowing what's there, that's always going to be the case when you have a zoning. It could change whatever the zoning is for a particular site. The tenant for that or the owner for that property can change tomorrow. It could be a different site tomorrow. So, you're never going to know with certainty what is going to be on a particular site. You just know what the potential for that particular site is based off of what it is zoned as.
Thank you.
Without a paper and then fill it out.
I've got a question also.
Okay.
Will y'all construct the building if it isn't rezoned at this time?
I think the plan would be to, well, again, it's gonna be based off of whatever tenant they're able to get into that particular site. It would be a spec building, but yes, there would be a building constructed regardless of what it is. It's just a matter of who the particular tenant is that's gonna be there. And we don't know that it would even be someone that's gonna be doing the, the heavy manufacturing. We just wanna be able to open it up for a larger potential.
Understood.
Thank you.
Can I speak and then fill out the paper, or do I need to fill out the paper?
You need to fill out the paper. All right. If there's no further comment, we're going to close this request. Next one is to hear the request of 115 Wooten LLC is a representative here to rezone from C2 to R5, 1.16 acres at 115 Wooten Drive. This is in the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this request rezoning from general commercial to rural residential. We can see here the subject property, approximately 1.1 acres, and we can see currently zoned general commercial and flanked by general commercial zoning to the north, east, and west. But we can see this is another area where zone districts are at a point of convergence and where the R5 and C2 zone districts collide. Subject property being on the north right-of-way of the street is separated from the existing R5 district to the south. So in terms of the impact this would have on the zoning map, it would simply move the R5 zone district north across the street. This would neither create an island or any such anomaly on the zoning map. Again, this would move an existing zone district in this area. And we can see here development throughout this area is somewhat like what we see on the zoning map. We see a convergence between these smaller residential developed lots and then more commercial to the north. But when we look at the subject property itself, what we see is a single-family nature. It's been well established. So that puts the subject property in non-conforming status as it currently stands. And this rezoning would restore conformity to the subject property and allow for the continuation of residential use. Based on the character area of the comprehensive plan, we can see this is within the suburban neighborhood character area, and that, of course, is intended to protect and as well as create an opportunity for residential development in this area. So we see no conflict whatsoever with the future development map, comprehensive plan, based on the existing zoning and development. So the staff can give a recommendation to approve based on no issues or concerns with impact, negative impact to the adjacent properties, and no conflict with the comprehensive plan or existing zoning. Be happy to answer any questions.
Gentlemen? Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Sir?
Jason Burnett, 2518 Mill Creek Road. What brought this to our attention is when we went to get insurance with Dwayne Blair over here. The mobile home is sitting on commercial property. We actually have to carry commercial insurance on the mobile home. The underwriter come back. So the insurance on the mobile home is 50% higher than just the regular insurance on the single-family dwelling sitting on the same piece of property. And we're not 100% positive we'll keep the tract with the mobile home on it. We may try to sell that parcel off and keep the other home. When we explored that, our realtor and banker both said that we would have to have the mobile home rezoned, that they would not be able to get any potential buyers on the home, the mobile home. Couldn't get conventional financing, that it would have to be rezoned to a conforming zoning district that would support the mobile home on it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anybody else like to speak in favor? Anybody like to speak in opposition? Very well, that closes that portion, and I think the last two items are in the city, so the county commissioners will be leaving us at this time. Next request is to hear from Maria Amaya. You here? Yes. To rezone from R3 to C1, 900 Riverbend Road in Dalton. This is in the city. Ethan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some of you may recall, may have been serving on the Planning Commission a couple of years ago when this petitioner came before us to rezone the property immediately to the south. That property has been developed. And contains a small restaurant operation. And the petitioner is requesting to rezone from the medium-density zone district to the neighborhood commercial zone district in order to expand the existing business adjacent to the south of the subject property onto the subject property itself. So as we can see on the zoning map, the change that was or is being proposed here would be to change from that dark green color being the R3 zone district to that lighter pink lavender color maybe underneath the subject property. It's currently neighborhood commercial. So it would simply move the neighborhood commercial one tract to the north, and that's the effect it would have on the zoning map. And we see this area is another area of convergence. We have several different zone districts here. We have a pocket neighborhood making up most of the property to the west, being mostly single-family medium density. But when we look to the east, to the south, and even to the north, we see large commercial district along Walden Avenue, and we see along Riverbend Road the manufacturing district. So we look at the existing development in the area, we can see very similar to the zoning map. We see the pocket residential neighborhood to the west. We see commercial to the east and to the north, and manufacturing to the south. Closer look at the subject property. It currently contains a single-family detached dwelling, which would be demolished, and the subject property would be expanded. I believe the commissioner or the petitioner can speak to more detail as to what exactly their plans are. But as we look here, we can see the future development map shows this area to be within the town neighborhood revitalization character area. Based on the neighborhood commercial zone district, this is a zone district intended for areas adjacent to neighborhoods, so to allow for certain types of uses that people living nearby could benefit from. And so this type of a restaurant establishment would be something that could be beneficial to the community. And again, noting the amount of commercial and manufacturing adjacent development, we don't see that the C1 zone district would have any negative impact on any of the residential properties, and certainly hasn't had any negative impact based on our observations of the adjacent business to the south having been recently developed. So based on all those factors, of course, any development that would take place on the subject property as it's adjacent to residential would be subject to buffers for any redevelopment that would occur to the property. So we believe that would mitigate any factors that would have a negative impact on any of those adjacent residential properties. With all that in consideration, we believe that this is a rezoning that can be approved and have no remarks from staff other than a recommendation to approve. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, Ethan.
Thank you.
Samaya? You have anything to add?
Yes, my name is Maria Amaya. I coming for, I need change them for residential, for commercial, for extension, de my restaurant, La Curva, number 3.
So business is good?
Yes.
And the food is good.
And the food's good.
And the building that you built looks nice.
Oh, thank you.
So you reconstruct, you're going to change the building on the corner lot, the new lot?
Yes, it's an extension because, it's another building, it's too small. It's, I need parking, I need yes.
Okay. Good. Anybody? Questions? Thank you. Anybody else like to speak in favor? Anybody like to speak in opposition? Very good, thank you. Move on to the last request. Jason Goldberg, are you here? Oh, okay. Stay here to rezone from M2 to R5, 0.15 acres at 1127 Riverbend Road, that is in Dalton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here we have a request to go from heavy manufacturing to rural residential, and as we look at the subject property and the petitioner's request, the request was made in order to develop the subject property for residential use, which of course could not occur as it's currently zoned. So when we take a look at the subject property, first and foremost, it's 0.15 acres in size, which is a difficult property to accomplish any type of heavy manufacturing on. So the requested use for residential seemed to be much more fitting for the subject property. And when we look at the zoning map, of course, we do see that the subject property is entirely surrounded by the manufacturing zone district. We can see in this area a number of properties zoned for R5, and you see a number of small lots there. When we go to the next slide, you can see it is right on the boundary of the city of Dalton within the city limits. And again, back to existing development currently. And much like what we saw a moment ago, we have another pocket neighborhood along Riverbend Drive here to the west. And you can see predominantly along this street, residential, mostly single-family detached homes. This rezoning would allow similar development that already exists on Riverbend Drive and would represent and reflect the majority of the existing development pattern. Closer look at the subject property. And next, the future development map shows this area to also be within a town neighborhood revitalization character area, which of course is intended to encourage reinvestment and some redevelopment in residential areas that are aging. This would be an exact implementation of the comprehensive plan as it's intended. So there are no concerns, no issues from staff's point of view. This is a easy recommendation for approval. Happy to answer any questions.
None, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Goldberg?
Thank you. Jason Goldberg, 1167 Percheron Drive.
Anything to add?
It's, you know, we have own the commercial, the heavy manufacturing building behind that. And I think we have approximately 6 to 7 acres that go with it. This is at the dead end of the street that, you know, ends into our building, into our property, and there's really there's nothing to be done with it other than maybe give somebody an opportunity to have an affordable home. And that's the way we looked at it, is I'd rather do that than just have it be mowed. So, you know, if somebody will develop a home on it and sell it affordably in today's market, and if that suits you guys, we'll be glad to do it. If not, I guess we'll mow grass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I'm just being very truthful about it, you know. We're well capable of funding the house being built and taking some risks there to give somebody else, you know, a residence. And if you look across the street, it's all residents, everything except for our building, so.
Are you planning on doing the building?
We'll build it,
We'll
yeah.
construct it?
Yeah.
Questions? Nope. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good deal. Anybody else like to speak in favor? Anybody like to speak in opposition? That said, that is the last request to be heard during the public portion of this meeting. You're welcome to listen in, but you will no longer be able to speak. Okay. Comments on Mr. Barragan? That is,
Make a recommendation to approve.
Second.
Eric makes a recommendation, Chris seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Sanchez, 100 Downing Street, I think that's one's just off East Walnut.
I move to approve.
Tevye makes a motion.
I'll second it.
David seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Dixie Bricks. Comments? Thoughts?
Hold on, looking at me.
Well, you made a good point earlier, that they can still build 600,000 to 700,000, which
The only difference is that
is the.
what they do in the
tenants.
building.
But
Yeah.
if I recall, last month, we have a request for somebody who was trying to rezone a piece of property.
Correct. Speculative rezone on residential
The
property.
decision was that we were not in the
Correct.
business of rezoning property without knowing
Correct.
specifically what's going on.
Particular reason.
It's really the same principle, except it's commercial as opposed to
Residential.
residential. Ethan, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If, obviously, the petitioners, they don't know who the end user might be, whether it was commercial usage or potential manufacturing usage. So in any, request for rezone, prior to deliberation and a recommendation from our group, if that were turned down, they would have to wait how long to request a rezoning? 1 year. If they decided to
Keep it.
pull, or could they pull it this late in the game?
Once the public hearing has been held, it has to go forward to final action.
Okay.
It's presently C2, so they can build the building.
Correct.
Yes.
The only thing would be if, for some reason, there's a manufacturer who wants to lease the building, then we
As it sits right now, they could they could spec a building similar to what they had there that could be a distribution center for whomever, national company. Or if the rezoning happened, they could have a building that might look a little bit different, that could be like a tier 2 or tier 3 supplier to Volkswagen or whomever. You know, that type of building that you see some of those around, you know, Ottawa, Collegedale, that supply the Volkswagen plant there. There's quite a number
Or
there.
even things like the Q-cells or.
Can
I
that,
mean, like,
can that be built under C2?
The building can, it's the
No,
usage.
The usage, that's what I'm talking about, the usage.
So it's the potential customers.
It can be
Nothing
used.
can be manufactured in C2. You can't build anything in C2, in the building.
Well, if they're gonna build something for car manufacturer, they're gonna build something.
so at that point, they won't be able to lease it to that particular tenant.
Or not for that purpose, correct?
A pure distribution, they could do that?
Yeah.
Just racks? Goods coming in and goods going out?
Yes. Yeah, the distribution can be done. I mean, a lot of those buildings have been built already.
You know, there are a lot of similarities into what we looked at last month or the month before, I don't remember, but there's some differences in the fact that that doesn't really change the nature of the character of that area, whether it's commercial or manufacturing very much. I mean, a distribution center that's 700,000 square feet's not that much different than somebody in there making something.
I would almost think you'd rather have a manufacturing center than a distribution center based on the traffic that would come in and out of distribution.
This is a lot similar to what we did last month, Octavio says.
Similar, but
Yeah.
there's some differences as well. How, can I ask, I'm gonna ask you a question. How, either of you, how far down the road have you guys gotten with any potential end user? Do you have any identified? Have you had any discussions, or is this just purely a spec?
We've had a few discussions with interested parties, and some of those have been manufacturing inquiries, but we're not really able to promise them anything until rezoning. And the point made is to provide clearly, we see that as use that would probably have less truck traffic, I suppose. But we've been getting interest from a group called EAE. They're a Turkish maker. They have a headquarter in Atlanta. They make like a bunch of electronic parts for automotive industry and energy transfer. And they've also had interest from an anonymous supplier to Volkswagen. And we want to buy May, but they're looking for space for that size range.
Okay, thank you.
Now, one other thing you've got to consider is the economic impact to our community too. And you can look at distribution impact versus manufacturing impact, and typically, the impact from a manufacturing facility is much better than distribution is a shell. It's just warehousing products. A lot of it's automated. It's robots moving products up and down the aisle, putting them in a, it doesn't really employ, people that earn, good wages. Manufacturing is much more likely to
We're
create
also
those type
100%
of jobs.
Freeport in the county.
Yeah.
Which affects how many tax dollars it generates to help pay for the roads and that sort of
But in
thing.
this case, there's not any abatements or anything that have happened, like we really seen before. I mean, there's.
No further comments, any motions?
As a crow flies, how far is this from engineered floors?
Third of a mile, maybe, crow flies.
How far?
Third of a mile, maybe, crow flies.
It's already manufactured.
A third of a mile, you're saying?
Yeah, that's the crow fly, it might be half a mile wiggling.
I make a motion, we approve.
Jody makes motion to approve.
It's 1,300 yards.
13,
From engineered floors to there,
Yeah.
1,300 to 13 football fields.
3/4. So there's a motion out to approve. Is there a second?
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 golf holes.
Second.
Octavio seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it unanimously. It's approved. Okay. 115 Wooten. That is.
Motion to approve.
Second.
David makes the motion, Chris seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. 3M Mile and Riverbend Road.
Motion we approve.
Jody, Octavio seconds, Jody first. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. It's approved. Mr. Goldberg,
He doesn't want to cut grass anymore.
I don't blame him.
Chris makes a motion.
Second.
Jody seconds. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
I'm still gonna open up some kind of pool hall or shady place.
We got anything else?
Any flats?
Sam?
Anything else?
She's busy. Yeah,
Jane,
taking a nap. Gene,
have anything else?
got anything else? All right, well,